I'm so lucky to have Jane Atkinson as part of the Greatness Magnified vlog this week. Jane, I know you are a really, really well-respected speaker coach. In fact, you were my very first speaker coach. And you have some really great insight and wisdom from having seen people progress or not progress in their career and how recognition can have a pretty big impact on that. What's some words of wisdom that you can share for anybody listening who perhaps are running their own business or even thinking about it and are an expert who speaks?
Well, I think that there are a lot of things that you can do to have tremendous recognition for your clients. So in my world, it's professional speakers who have a client who has a goal. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the best thing that you can do to recognize them, sure, you can send them a beautiful gift and a promotional product after the event is done or when you get the booking. But one of the things I think will have the most long-lasting impact is really giving them something of value that they can kind of hang on to.
Mm.
So there might be language in your presentation that can become sticky. And what you might offer them is ways to keep the language alive for a long time after the program is going. Maybe there are little coffee mugs or something that can keep it going. And I think from our perspective, from a speaker's perspective, the best form of feedback is to go into a boardroom 6 months after you have spoken to this company and hear them using your language.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so doing a great job and giving them some language that's really, really sticky that they can hang on to and start to build into their culture in order to make this a thing that kind of goes beyond them, the ripple
Mm.
effect.
Yeah, I really love that, Jane, because oftentimes we think about recognition in terms of something you have to give to people, that it's something extra, it's something different. But you're right. When you just do I shouldn't say just, when you do an exceptional job and people can remember it and it's transformative, and I don't mean the sort of colloquial transform lives, but actually truly help people
Yes,
solve their issues and remember the lesson and remember the strategy later.
exactly.
That's gold right there. So for folks who are watching this, listening to this, who aren't maybe professional speakers, but of course have to present and lead workshops and things in their work and in their life, what suggestions can you pull from the professional speaking world to help maybe recognize their audience or the people who are listening to this powerful message?
Well, this is not even just a secret for this audience. It's a
Yeah.
secret for everybody because not a lot of professional speakers are using this
Oh,
one. Okay,
okay.
so Joe Calloway gave me this one and he does it brilliantly in his business. The key is making the audience the heroes of your presentations.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it could be, and Joe even takes it one step further, and he might make the CEO or the leader the hero of his presentation by, moving it out of a presentation mode into him interviewing the leader of the organization to pull out the kinds of things that we want the audience to know. So that's one idea. But also, let's say you have a 3-part formula that you're going to unveil in your presentation. And you can ask ahead of time for the person running the conference,
Mhm.
who are 3 people who are well liked and respected that I might be able to interview to get some kind of firsthand knowledge of the audience. And so they'll give you 3 people and you will go and do your research and you will ask them questions that are really specific to your formula. And when you say, this is my idea, and you say, and Susan Jones just used this idea, stand up, Susan. And then you're recognizing Susan, and Susan becomes the hero of your story. Everybody goes nuts. And the important part to that is that Susan is well liked and recognized as kind of a mover and shaker, because that's just an important piece of that, because if Susan isn't well liked, then the story may not land quite as well. But
Mhm.
Anyway, I think that that's a secret that most professional speakers are not using. And I think that that's a secret that people who put on recognition conferences could use, and be asking of their speakers, well, how are you going to bring my audience into it? How are you going to make them the heroes? And knowing their culture and what's important to them, and also doing the homework with the leaders is important as well.
Yeah, and I really reflect on and wish that I had this sage advice back when I was doing corporate presentations, because oftentimes we would be very critical in our presentations. We're trying to build that planet burning platform and that sense of urgency, all of John Cotter's rules of change, but we do it in kind of a blaming, shaming, criticizing,
Mm.
scare tactics sort of way, as opposed to what is that expression? You get more flies with honey, So,
Mhm.
so how do we in fact make present the opportunity? I mean, one of the things I love about what you do is you start with this vision. Every mastermind, every retreat, every presentation that you've ever delivered. In fact, it's how you begin your books. You say, picture this or imagine, and then you put us into this desired future, which
Yes.
actually you may or may not know from the solution focused approach that I write about. That is actually a wonderful way to get people super excited, because you're presenting their best hope. But to your point, you have to know them well enough to know what that best hope is.
Yeah, and that
So
comes with your research, with understanding the company or the association, knowing their values, knowing what's important to them, and also knowing their pain points.
yeah,
Because if you can help solve their pain points, well, then you've really, really done a great job. And honestly, if it was up to me and I were going to get either a box of chocolates afterwards or a really amazing speech, I would take
yeah,
the really amazing speech.
yeah, yeah,
Okay, so we think sometimes that trinkets equal recognition, but I actually think it's the whole package.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then to hear, once you've done that, you've done all this homework, you've delivered this amazing presentation, and then afterwards people say, wow, that really landed. Or you know what, I never thought of it that way. Or I'll never forget that story of so and so. I think that is one of the best forms of recognition then you can get in return. That's the reciprocal power of recognition, right? Is that you
Exactly.
recognize people
It
and then
feeds
they
you.
recognize you back. Yeah.
It feeds you to keep you, it keeps you going. And um, I, I think that you can ask a question. We as speakers can ask the question, well, how long would you like this message to last? And a
Mhm.
lot of people who are putting on an event, they might be thinking just about that event.
Yeah.
But what if it's the cultural shift that they're trying to achieve? What if they're trying to make it a culture of recognition? Then the question is, well, how long would you like this to last? And then you as the speaker can say, okay, and we as the convention coordinator might be thinking, well, what can we do after this? How
Mhm.
can we not have this just be like a cup of cappuccino and the vibe of it only lasts for a half an hour and then it goes away? How do we
Mhm.
make it last longer? And so you might really think about, well, what can you do for me as a speaker that will allow us to go deeper on this idea?
Mhm. Well, the perfect example of that, Jane. I spoke at a national conference on Monday, and here we're doing this interview on a Thursday. And just yesterday, I went back to hear the closing keynoters, wanting to listen to a fellow speaker. He listened to me, and he's going to give me feedback, vice versa. Um, and and I saw the meeting organizer, who's the head of this association, just before his session started. And she said, it's amazing how many of my staff keep coming up to me and saying they've been frogged. And then they look very curious. And then I know from having been in your presentation what frog means, but they have that strange look of, shock. And
What
then the
does that mean?
delegates have loved saying, and frog stands for forever recognize others' greatness. The greatness I have to recognize in you is. And she said, when I was sitting there listening, I never would have thought that it was my staff who would get the recognition. I just assumed they'd bring this back to their workplace.
Right.
So, I mean, obviously that makes sense because my calls to action are in fact about recognition. But to your point around making a lasting impact, I think no matter what topic, no matter what area of expertise, when one of the most important things is that we recognize the people who have made all of this stuff possible. So
Yes.
maybe that's kind of like an important closing point that we can make is make
Yes.
sure you thank your administrative assistants who set up the teleconferencing software. Make sure you thanked your coach,
Yeah.
who helped you prepare for that meeting, your boss who gave you a good key up before you started, or, I
Right.
think that we forget about all the people who
Oh,
made that presentation happen.
and honestly, Sarah, I have to tell you, I have to work hard at this. This is not something, it might come naturally for you because this is what you think about 24/7.
Yeah.
But I am not as good at that. I just ran a meeting, and in the meeting, I should have recognized my assistant who had done so much hard work to get it ready more. And you gave me some great ideas on what to do after the fact. But I really felt that, and I thought, gosh, I think it becomes a part of your DNA when you do it often enough. And so I could use some of that, some more of that recognition DNA rubbing off on me. One of the fallback positions I have is, okay, as long as everybody walks away with what it is that they need, great, then we've done a good job and we've had a good meeting. But at the same time, there might be that one person who's going, I did a lot of work for that and I didn't get recognized.
Right. Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I think it's always really valuable when somebody who's really well respected and very professional and very poised also acknowledges where they're working on
Oh,
something. So
yeah.
thank you for that.
I'm a constant work in progress. No question about it.
So am I. Yeah. So thank you so much, Jane, for your time today. I know this is really, really valuable because speaking is part of every professional's job now. There isn't a single
That's right.
person who doesn't have to do a very brief presentation update in a team meeting right through to speak to all of the people in their whole organization and introduce a new product. So,
Yeah.
this is super, super valuable to a lot of people. And we've touched on so many different aspects of how you recognize both very tangibly as well as the experience as well. So thank you so much for your time,
You're
Jane.
welcome. You're welcome.
Yeah, and we're going to make sure that in the description, folks know how to reach out to you if they would like,
Awesome.
whether they're a professional speaker or that they're looking to, tweaks and improve their speaking biz, how they can reach out to you.
Okay, great. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Jane.